Well, good evening and welcome. Welcome to the high-rise edition. People said they really like what I said about Sandestin. They really want some more information. So I'm going to try to break it down into some layman terms about what's really going on with this 20-something high-rise condo about to go into Sandestin, and 6 or 7 more to follow, I believe. But chime on in, commissioners, and tell us how many y'all cut into the deal. And the planning staff, what is it, like 1,900 units? The only way you get to build them units is with compliance. So we'll get to that. But, you know, this special edition is about high rises, and you know what that means. That's right. Well, we're moving on now to the deluxe apartment. We're moving on up. Everybody got a piece of the pie. Hunting camps don't fund themselves. Took a whole lot of trying just to get up that hill. Now we're up in the big leagues. Guess not turning back. Getting so rich, they can't catch us. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I think you guys get the picture. They've moved on up in Sandestin. So let's break it down. Is it true that Sandestin can build condos? Like I said, that's true. And the reason is, in simple terms, before we had a comprehensive plan, before 1996, we just had development orders. But this development order was special, like I said in the first edition. It affected the region. So it had all these rules and they had broke them. But I talked about that before. But let's talk about how simplistic these rules are and how simple our commissioners just can't seem to understand, and how much evidence there is. Now, if Mike Atkinson or any of the BCC or any of the staff or any of the developers, if I'm lying, why don't y'all have a public debate and embarrass me? Because I don't really have these documents, right? I'm crazy. I've made them up. Now, I admit, people don't like my presentation about some things, and some people find the parodies tacky and stuff. But, you know, people, when I used to try to stand up and say this in technical terms at meetings, dressed nicely with nice hair, all I got was a good old Blazing Saddles harumph. It was like a Headley Lamar meeting. You don't know what that is, you're too young to be watching my show. But, you know, it was just a bunch of BS and nobody paid attention. It's a shame I have to point out how Springer-like this county is, just to try to convince you guys that we need better government. But listen to how simple this is. In 1973, they knew that the impact on the environment and the natural sources of the region were so great that paragraph 19B is water quality. And let me tell you how many paragraphs and sections there are on water quality in 1973. There wasn't, I mean, we didn't have hardly anything back then, but we knew this area was suitable for shellfish. And Horseshoe Bayou that you see behind me, see the open end of the horseshoe? That used to be one of the most pristine trout fisheries in the Choctawhatchee Bay for hundreds of years. And that point out at 4 Mile Point, right in the top of my head above the marina and the high rise, that's where the Choctawhatchee Indians probably dried their fish, and there's shell mounds, and there's an Indian mound burial site on part of this DRI. It was special. And they said, when you build this neighborhood, the older practices of curbing roads and thus directing the runoff into storm sewers and pipes to immediately carry the water into the bay will not be employed. So you can't pipe water straight into the bay. Go to Sandestin. Go out there on the county right-of-ways in Driftwood. This is why the county doesn't want to have these hearings. They don't want to talk about compliance because they haven't been compliant either. Now, how can we expect the fox to guard the hen house, people? They're not going to turn themselves in. They're not going to have the hearings. And we'll get into this, how simple it is. There's water retention areas, withdrawal from groundwater, withdrawals from surface water, discharges into surface water. It's very clear. Listen to what it says. None of the categories A through F will be discharged directly into any of the public waters surrounding the whole Sandestin project. That means the bay and the beach, the whole project. How does the county not understand that? And how do they not understand what's supposed to happen to it? It says in all cases, all. Can you tell me how to get? The letter of today is A for all. That means all inclusive, this whole resort, Driftwood too. All cases, the handling of stormwater runoff, any liquid discharges will be assimilated into the vegetation, soils, and internal lake systems. Every precaution is being taken to maintain or improve the good water quality of Choctawhatchee Bay. That was in 1973. It goes on to further define it as we get on through these pages and pages, and they say, what's that number? Well, there's a number. It's right here. They said, and when the county and the state wanted to define it, the surface runoff. This is what the county commission, what they're doing, and I'll explain it. Here's what the development order says, and here's what the letters from the state say. The projected retention time for stormwater runoff for a 3-year frequency with a 24-hour event. This system should sufficient to control stormwater runoff as requires 6.7 inches of rainfall. So here's where the lie is. The traffic's just out of compliance and they've had a substantial deviation. They don't want to have the hearing. But they had to retain, basically, if there was 6.7 inches of rain in 24 hours, and this particular piece of ground, based on its soil sample, could only absorb 2 inches, then you had to retain the other 4.7 inches of water for 24 hours to allow it to assimilate through the natural filters before it could be dumped in the bay or the beach, the whole area surrounding Sandestin. Now, of course, if you exceeded that amount, that would almost be a set of other non-normal events. I mean, a tropical storm, we know that after 6.7, it may naturally have run into those areas anyway. So we're not requiring the developer to overcome nature, but they wanted to make this impact, but they said that the bay was such good water quality, they were going to have to retain it. And folks, they haven't followed those laws for 20 years. Let me give you a quick history. I try to keep these down to not too long now because y'all like that, but the funny stuff. Even in February 4th of 2019, after like 10 years of litigation, Greg Graham says he disagrees with the PhD Henry Harper. He disagrees with the Florida Board of Professional Engineers. He disagreed with the DCA. He disagreed with the DEO. He disagreed with the special master. He disagreed with the state attorneys, and he disagreed with Steve Seibert, who wrote the law. And Danny Glidewell was Greg Graham's champion, said he would not let him be fired. Well, if he's lied and cost the county millions, and so is some of the staff, let's not fire him. Let's investigate and indict them for corruption. So Greg Graham goes on, even to, this report's from 2014 letter. It says that if the board chooses to rely on local regulations, meaning the half-inch standard for the whole county, which they don't have the choice of, because then they'd have to follow the comp plan. They couldn't build the high rises. If the board chooses, this is Greg Graham's statement, to rely on local regulations and FDEP permits for stormwater, an amendment to the DRI development order is needed to reflect that termination. They've never done it. He said he would concur that this needs to be done, but to do that, they'd have to admit that they've been lying and they don't want to. It's just that simple. Little quick things. I'm going to be giving y'all some pictures. Since 1982, Florida law has defined stormwater, water quality and treatment since 1982. And they're arguing about the definitions. There's no argument. The Florida Administrative Covenants define them. The 1984 DRI settlement that they are on right now, from the last time they didn't follow the rules, It says specifically in there, stormwater drainage requirement for the DRI. Retention of the stormwater runoff is predicated on a 3-year storm of 24 hours duration for a total of 6.7 inches of rainfall. So they said the same thing in 84 that they said in 73, and the county still is now telling us they've approved the high rises. You see behind me some new ones on a 1/2-inch standard. That's 90% less than may be required in some of those areas. This doesn't pass the smell test. It's corruption. 2007, the DCA wrote to Walton County and they had hearings, totaling the same standards. The Florida statute, and y'all ask why nothing's happened? Listen with the Florida statute. You're waiting for the state to step in? They won't, because we've got corruption. It says the local government issuing the development order under these rules, which is us, Walton County, for the region, is the one primarily responsible for monitoring and enforcing the provisions. And our BCC does not have the cojones to do so because somebody's pockets wouldn't be lined, and somebody'd have to tell the truth about how great the great cover-up $500 million fraud or $1 billion fraud. It says local governments, listen, here's the catcher on the high rise. 380.0617, it's already stood to court and the county signed the agreement. Local governments shall not issue any permits or approvals or provide any extensions of services, like take the application that they took, Matt Carpenter, if the developer fails to act in substantial compliance with the development order, meaning you're not in compliance, it's game over till you are. Folks, that's how simple the Sandestin issue is. A special magistrate found the same thing in 2009. He said there's no debate that the Sandestin DRI contains a 6.7 stormwater retention standard. Dr. Henry Harper, hired in my court settlement by the county, determined the same thing. We've known this for 15 years and your board's covering it up. And that's how it is on the Alan Osborne Show. Corruption in Sandestin. Write your state attorney. Throw Danny out of office. Throw Trey out of office. Stop the corruption. Call somebody. Write a petition for a state investigation. Somebody tell Matt Gaetz DeSantos needs to come down here and stop all this polluting of Gaetz's district. Come on, Matt. Come stop them. That's it on the Alan Osborne Show. Y'all keep them straight out there. You hear?